In 2022, I moved from Nigeria to the UK. I've made it through a couple of years now, and these are some of the things I wish I knew that would have helped me make the process a little bit smoother and easier. Moving to the UK in 2022 was quite exciting, but at the same time, it was overwhelming that I forgot to plan, especially in terms of my finances and finding the right home. I had a friend who was willing to put up with me for a few months, but this did not exactly work out to my advantage. And especially because I had changed a lot of money from Naira to British pounds, I wasn't sure of what I was going to be spending here in the UK. And this leads me to my first tip, which is financial planning. It is very, very important to plan your finances, especially because finances are going to be the bedrock of everything that you do. You're going to be spending a lot of money to transport yourself, to feed, even to pay for your rent or mortgage or whatever it is that you're going to be doing in terms of your accommodation. You're going to definitely have to commit some finances, and that's why having a proper plan is very important. You have to already structure your finances even before you come to the UK. Just like I had mentioned earlier, because I failed to plan my finances, I came into the UK thinking I had changed millions in naira and now it's turned into pounds. Coming here, you find out that you're spending maybe £2 or £1 on a bottle of water, and then when you convert that money back to the naira, you realize that you're spending a lot of money in terms of naira on just a bottle of water. Now, I'm not going to say that that's the right way to think when you're in the UK, but you cannot help but think that way when you've just come from Nigeria, especially because you're changing naira to pounds. If you're changing naira to pounds, you already have to have that in your mind that you're going to definitely be spending a whole lot more when you get to the UK. You need to do your proper research to know where you're going to be living in, because different areas, if you're living in like a city like London, you're definitely going to be spending a lot more on most basic needs. Whilst if you're living in the smaller cities, it will be different. Now you need to do research to find out where you're going to be living, cost of living in those areas, and you need to actually plan your finances to know very well that even if you've changed 10 million, 20 million, or whatever in Naira, or wherever you're coming from, as long as it's not the UK, you need to already know that when you change that money to the UK, your money is most likely going to lose value. And you're going to be spending a lot. So plan properly so that you don't get overwhelmed by spending British pounds. Secondly, you need to also plan your accommodation. I also mentioned earlier that a friend put up with me, or rather, I put up with a friend for a few months, and it was meant to be to my advantage. But why did I say this was negative? I was schooling in Birmingham, but I was living with a friend in a place called Slough, very close to London. Now, to get to school, I had to go to school twice a week. Going to school every week, I was spending hundreds of pounds just on transportation. And then when I get to school, sometimes I have to sleep over and I have to pay for Airbnb and stuff like that. If you look at it in the real sense of things, it was not financially wise. It was very, very poor planning. If I had actually looked for a small accommodation in Birmingham, I would have saved myself some costs. But now having to keep put up with a friend, I still had to, mind you, I still had to spend some money on little things. Even though it was free accommodation, I still had to contribute to the light. I still had to get some little things for that we eat in the house or drink or eat, just little stuff around the house. I was still spending money, and then I still had to spend money on accommodation in Birmingham. Sometimes I had to spend hundreds of pounds to transport myself to Birmingham. It was financially unwise, but this, I'm not blaming myself and I'm not beating myself, but if I knew better, I'd have planned differently. And that's why I'm letting you know now that you need to also plan for your accommodation before you land in the UK. You need to do proper financial planning in terms of your accommodation. Look for cheaper rent. There are some cheaper rents that you can use to settle in, because if you go to, especially shared accommodations, if you go to Rightmove, apps like Rightmove and Zoopla, you find out that there are options that can help you manage your finances in terms of accommodation. You share accommodation with people, even if it's for a short while, before you get working and then raise some money that you can now move into a better befitting space. I'm just going to say, don't overspend and don't try to oversave, because trying to oversave in some cases would eventually turn out to be you overspending. The second thing I'm going to be talking about is cost of living. A lot of you just see cost of living on the UK government website and assume that you're going to be paying that amount, but you don't really understand how these monies go. You're going to be having common or regular expenses on a monthly basis, like your rent, your bills, your feeding, your transportation. These are things that are going to be recurring. But there are hidden bills that people do not talk about. Some of you who are coming to the UK for the first time may never have heard about council tax. Well, you're going to be paying council tax. This is an expense that you pay to the council for your accommodation. you're going to be paying council tax on a monthly basis. You need to have this in mind so that when you're planning your finances, you're not just planning for rent, transportation, feeding, bills. You have to also have things like council tax in mind. Some of you, when you come to the UK, you just go and buy a very big screen because you can afford to buy it. You buy a very big TV, and then you're not aware that you also have to pay TV licenses on your TVs. There are certain hidden bills here and there that you need to be smart about. You need to be aware. Also, I know you already paid your health insurance most likely coming into the UK. You need to know that your health insurance will only cover for consultation, and maybe in cases of emergency they'll treat you. But for your medication and prescriptions, you're going to have to spend. Don't think that you're coming here, you're not going to fall ill, especially for those of us who come from Africa. We like to work, we work a lot, we go to school, we come back, we work, and then your body will tell on you. You might have to buy prescription drugs. These are some of the things that you do not plan for. These are some of the things you do not prepare for. And that's why I'm sharing these tips with you guys so that you can plan better. Now, I'm going to be talking about getting a stable home. I know I mentioned I was going to talk about that when I do the video on financial planning, which is why I'm bringing it up now. You know you're going to be moving to the UK and it's going to be long term, even if it's for 1 year, if it's for 2 years, and even if it's going to be for 4 years, because most people after their studies they would like to do what is called post-study work visa, and which means you're going to be living in the UK for a while. I'm going to tell you something. Usually, when you come to the UK, if you're not coming with a lot of money, at some point during your stay, you would have gathered enough money to now rent the kind of house that you would like. But if you're fortunate enough to come into the UK with enough money, I'll tell you already plan to have the right home, because there's nothing better than having the right home. You need to do proper research to know where your house is going to be located. It has to be at least central to your school if you're coming as a student, or central to work where you'll be working. You need to plan, because you don't want to go for a very cheap accommodation and then you have to spend so much on transportation, or you get very cheap accommodation and in that area the cost of living is very expensive. At the end of the day, you actually have a cheap accommodation but you're not actually paying less. You might even be paying more than someone who is paying higher in terms of rent. So finding a stable accommodation, there are certain things you need to have in mind. You need to know that first of all, you need to be credit worthy. You need to have a good credit score. And in some cases, if your credit score does not match, because for those of us who are coming from Africa or from Nigeria, I'll be specific, we may not have very good credit scores, but there are still certain ways that you can go around these things. You might have to bring a guarantor, or you might have to bring a reference from work to show that you actually have stable income coming in. Also, you might also have to do proper review of your tenancy agreement. So in some cases, doing it by yourself, yes, because it's layman terms that you use in the agreement, but you might not understand the terms that are there because some things will come up. Like for instance, I'll say again, council tax. Some of us do not even know what council tax is. Some of us do not even understand what category of council tax you're paying. Even till today, for some of us, it took me a while to understand what category A, B, C, D in terms of council tax meant. You coming as a first timer, you see all these things, you will not understand. So you need to actually get someone who is knowledgeable in this area. Most likely, I'm going to tell you get a lawyer, but getting a lawyer is expensive. If you cannot get a lawyer, look for someone who actually understands, or you can just do proper research by yourself, find out what these categories mean, and know what you're going to be paying in terms of council tax. If you're coming with family, I'm going to tell you one thing for sure. Avoid living in areas like the high street. Not because the houses there are not good, but you pay so much to live on the high street and it's not very residential. If you're coming with family, I'll tell you look for a residential area. You might have to pay more in terms of accommodation, but you're going to be paying less in terms of cost of living. Cost of living is going to be reduced because it's now going to be looked at like family setting. If you're going to be getting a home on the high street, I'll tell you one thing for sure. People who stay on the high street have access to more things because they're very close to the shops. Now, the council knows that you live in a residential area. You're living away from the high street, which means you need to go to the high street to get things. They factored all that in, which means in some way your cost of living is going to have to be reduced from the councils and so that you can meet up with those other things. But somehow, like I said, it all comes back to you doing proper research. Read all your agreements properly and know what works for you in terms of accommodation. Like I said again, I cannot overemphasize this. If you're coming as a student or if you're coming as a worker, look for a central place that will be very easy for you to access work in terms of transportation. I'll tell you one thing. If you have to take a train to work or school, your transportation is quite expensive. The cheapest ways to go around is going by bus. Any accommodation that would require you to take transportation to school or to work or to wherever is already increasing your cost of living. So look for accommodations where you have bus routes that will lead you to work or school very easily. I'm telling you this that this is actually a very valid tip. And take it from me, when you come, you would actually thank me later for this tip. All right, what's next to do now that you've gotten a stable home? You need to start working on building a proper credit score. In the UK, most things work under credit system. You want to buy even a phone, a mobile phone. I know coming from Nigeria or anywhere else in Africa, you would have been used to paying cash for your devices, your mobile phones, your wristwatches, your shoes. Here in the UK, even down to the clothes you wear, you can actually pay them in finance. That's to say, you can pay on installments. I'm going to tell you one thing. When you come into the UK, you realize that a lot of things are actually accessible to you, but they may not be accessible to you from the first start. Which means building a credit score is going to open the doors for you. You're going to have access to more things, and you're going to be able to pay at convenience, which means you can plan your finances. Imagine knowing exactly how much goes out every month. You know that your rent is going to cost you £1,000. You know that if you have a car, your car is going to cost you um, £80 to maintain every month. And maintaining a car, for instance, might require paying the finance bill for the car. You may have gotten the car on finance. You may have gotten your phone on finance. You know that you're going to pay your phone bill a certain amount every month. It makes your life very easy to plan. You can have a spreadsheet to say, these are all my monthly bills, and this is exactly how much I need to pay for my bills every month. If you're getting, for instance, £2,000 monthly, and your bills are £1,500 monthly, it means you're able to conveniently save £500 every month. Also, you need to know that once you've been able to organize your credit score to the minimum standard, you will be able to access more things, which means you have less burden on your finances, and it will help you plan very well. And this is going to lead me to the next point, which I'm going to be talking about. Since do come up. And if you're only saving to buy a car or buy a house or to get rich, which is not possible, I'm sorry to say that. I'm sorry to break your bubbles. But I'm going to tell you, you cannot save to get rich. So that you have to take a lot of money to pay for. Guess what you're going to do? You're going to set yourself back. You've been saving hundreds of pounds, thousands of pounds to be able to afford a nice car or to be able to pay for your mortgage or your rent. You find out that you've taken all the money that you saved up for your house or for your car to put into that emergency that just come up. Now, why did I also say you cannot save to get rich? Savings is not the smart financial plan in terms of building wealth. Building wealth, you require investments. Investments, no matter how little the profits will be, it is an investment and it is not short term. Even though there are short term investments and long term investments, short term investments to me and to most financial people are still not short term in that sense. Some short term investments could be 3 months, 6 months. If you look at it, you realize that keeping money for 3 months is not such a short time. Keeping money for 6 months is not such a short time. We start to talk about long-term investments when it runs into 1 year, which means even keeping money for 9 months, for 10 months, 11 months is still short term. If you're keeping money in investments or if you're investing your money in something, it's meant to continue to roll and roll and roll and bring money, depending on your risk appetite and how long you're willing to invest. Which means investing is actually the way to build wealth and not savings. It's okay to save money to invest, which means you save up some money and put it in an investment. Is a wise financial plan. But you also need to save up money that is kept for emergencies. If you want, you can label your savings to say this savings is for health emergencies, this savings is for accidents and miscellaneous, this savings is for this and that, education, whatever it may be, travel, holidays. You can save towards things like that, but you have to have emergency funds. Emergency funds is for the rainy day, and I'm telling you one thing, here in the UK, rainy days do come. You might need to hire a lawyer one day because you do not know the law. You might need to pay for prescriptions because you don't know when you fall ill. You may need to even travel for a friend's wedding or a family. Imagine that you're from Nigeria, and unfortunately, things do happen. You're from Nigeria, and maybe a family back in Nigeria dies. You might have to pay an emergency flight ticket back to Nigeria for the burial or to make contributions for the burial to happen. Thinking about all these things, you can never ever plan enough in terms of finances, but you can make wise moves that will help you stay ahead of the curve. Which means building an emergency fund is a smart move. And what do you need to do to build your smart emergency fund? You first of all need to know what your monthly expenses are. And that's why I said building a credit score is smart, because it will help you plan your finances on a monthly basis. Once you've done that, Then you can now build your emergency funds based off of your monthly expense. What is a smart financial move is to have a minimum of 3 months worth of your monthly expenses as emergency funds. Let's say your monthly expenses is 1,500. I'm saying you need to have 4,500 saved up, not in investment, not for a car, not for fancy things. You're saving that money and keeping it aside as a smart financial move for the next 3 months. Let's say you're employed and you're working, you're earning money, and everything is moving smoothly. What if your company shuts down? If it shuts down, it's not a case of they sacked you, it's a case of that the company has shut down. What if you actually get sacked? There are so many things that can happen that will hurt your finances. And once it hurts your finances, there's only one thing you can fall back to: your emergency savings. That is why emergency savings is very important. It's even more important than your monthly expenses. But when you think about it, you cannot go monthly without paying for your bills. But the way you think about your bills, that they have to be paid. I'm telling you one thing, that your emergency savings has to be paid as well. There is no two ways about it. It is not a case of, oh, this month I'm tired, let me just give myself a treat. Yes, give yourself a treat. I love to hear that, because I also love to give myself a treat, but not at the expense of your emergency savings. Why am I saying this? You must not compromise on your emergency savings. When that day comes, he's not going to tell you. When that day comes, he's not going to give you like foreknotice. You're just going to see it on your doorstep, and you're going to have to pick yourself up. That is why you need to have emergency savings. Now, that being said, what have I been saying? I'm literally telling you that if you have a proper financial plan, it's going to help you manage your cost of living. And in managing your cost of living, you have to consciously think about getting a stable home. And for you to be able to build a stable home and work your finances the right way, you need to have a proper credit score. And once you've been able to have a proper credit score, manage your finances properly, have a stable home, you need to also have a proper savings for emergencies. And that's a wrap, guys. I'm happy you stayed till the very end of this video. And if you're still here till now, don't forget to click the like button below. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share this video with your friends. And I'm going to be doing the next video on how to build a credit score. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Stay blessed, keep hustling, keep grinding, and I'll see you in my next video on how to build a proper credit score. Cheers.